Well, hello, welcome to ILoveGay today. And we are with my friend Jayzen Patria from Los Angeles today. How are you?
Hey, Matt, what's going on?
It's so great to connect with you here. You and I, I mean, you look so young that no one will ever believe it, but you and I
It's the
go,
magic of Zoom filters, right? It's like that Vaseline gloss, like I'm Elizabeth Taylor in that White Diamonds commercial, right?
oh my God, you do it so well. But I mean, we've known each other for decades now. And
Yeah, like 20 years, if you can believe it.
yeah, and I mean, I think that's a real testament to like the work you've done is that I mean, I would say for those that don't know you, you've been a true community leader for all those years.
Well, I don't know if I'm a true community leader, but I certainly love to be involved in our community here in Los Angeles, and then obviously the broader LGBTQ plus community around the world.
Oh, but you have been, and because yeah, when I first met you, you were always representing and part of NBC Universal, yes.
Yeah, well, I worked at NBC Universal 25 years, as any
Yeah.
good Hollywood kid would do. And one of the great things about working at NBC Universal was their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, in my day job, I ran executive development and NBC Universal's talent lab, and then my gay job was running out at NBC Universal the
Yeah.
employee resource group. And because at the time, many years ago, we were owned by General Electric. I also co-chaired GE's GLBTA Alliance. And then when Comcast bought the business about a decade or more or so ago, I helped them actually launch all of their employee resource groups, which was super fun. So it allowed me to spend a lot of time out in the community, recruiting and connecting all of those great brands to the LGBTQ plus community as well.
Yeah, no, and I've seen you and connected with you all along the way. And I know that a big part of all of that side of your life, you were very much a part of Out and Equal as well. Yeah, it seems like it was very well aligned with all those employee resource groups.
Yeah, well, I mean, Out and Equal is such an amazing organization, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, they're really the preeminent organization serving the LGBTQ plus business community and all of the employee resource groups that operate in corporations and government, and even a little bit in the nonprofit space. When I look back, I have been going to Out and Equal since 2004, so it is a long time, and I have spent 20 years speaking at the conferences, sharing best practices, and it's exciting in the past few years really being sort of an adjunct faculty member for them, teaching at their executive forum and of course their big workplace summit, which is coming up this October in Las Vegas, live and in real life, as well as a hybrid model for those of you that are still remoting into things.
You did that so well. But you left all that. You left that. Everybody's known you for so long in this role, and you left it. But you've started a new career. Tell us about
I
that.
did, and I'm coming on the fifth 5-year anniversary of my business. And I really look at myself as a personal branding expert, a diversity advocate, and I host the popular Lead with Your Brand podcast, which you can grab on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. But really, what I realized over my entire career was that I'm really on a mission to help people find their true brand voice and be able to bring their best authentic selves to work every single day. And that's a lot about the work that I did when I ran executive development and the corporate university at NBC Universal. It's clearly all about what was driving my passion for employee resource groups. And today I'm able to do that with corporate clients, all around the world, both speaking at conferences as well as really going into organizations. So, I always get this question where people are like, well, I don't get it. Like, what does personal branding have to do with diversity and inclusion? And I think like on the surface, there's not necessarily a connection, but what we find is for those of us that are from marginalized communities, right, whether you're a person of color, female, LGBTQ plus, a person with a disability, there's numerous communities. Oftentimes when it comes to the workforce, it's like there's all these unwritten rules of moving forward in business that like no one pulled us aside and told us, because a lot of times we find ourselves, or traditionally have found ourselves, as the only one, right?
Yeah.
So I find that this whole notion of finding your true brand voice and being able to bring your best authentic self to the table, while it's certainly a universal theme for people that come from traditionally marginalized communities, we have sort of that extra effort because we have to bust through all of that bias and really be seen as unique individuals that bring value to the table, and not as, you know, the gay guy that works in HR, or I think that lesbian person that works in finance, or, you know, oh, I think that person's a trans person that works out in operations.
Yeah. You really delivered that well. I mean, that it's clear to me. And but now I see why it's been doing so well for you. And you know, it just seems to. I've even attended one of your webinars and so forth recently, and it just seems like you're kind of expanding the brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's really all about going out there. You know, it's like I always spent time a little bit in the virtual space, planning and doing all of those great things. And then when we look at something like COVID, it was really that tipping point for people to be able to want to consume, or at the time have to consume, right, in a virtual way. And now I really see we're at this new place where we're really understanding what truly hybrid is really all about. In fact, I was just on a call with one of my clients, and we're doing a big Pride Month event, and I'm going to be in person in Stamford, Connecticut, with a live studio audience, and it's going to be broadcast to 3 locations, and we'll be facilitating a whole conversation in Zoom rooms for all of their remote folks. And there's like a before show, the actual show, and then an after show. And it's just really interesting how we're really embracing this as a way to connect with people more, right? And that's really what it's about.
No, I think you know, a silver lining of a lot of what we've had to go through the last few years is that a lot of what you're talking about just sort of accelerated. It was already kind of slowly going that direction, but I feel like it
Yeah.
accelerated. And if you weave that together with your power of social media, I mean, that's how I always know what you're up to.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I think, you know, I'm so thankful to have been following all of your work at Pink Media, right? And all of the hashtag ILoveGay everything, which, you know, I love tagging stuff at that when I show up in different towns.
Yep.
Every time I'm in New York or Palm Springs, or all of those great things. You know, I really feel like you were really sort of ahead of your time, because now we're really seeing how this really wraps around to touch people in these multiple ways. That's really all about connection, right? Because we just live in, I mean, I think we used to say like a dual screen world, but I think it's like a multi-screen world, right? Because I've got like 3 screens around me right now. Plus I might be talking to someone in person, and we're on those screens too, right?
Yeah, no, we got connected years ago. I mean, all of us kind of connected through the internet, and over the last few years, we've really learned to collaborate and share ideas and become, you know, for better or for worse. And that's the, you know, for the better is we see the world come together in many ways. But the worst part is that we have to listen and hear some of the stuff we didn't want to have to hear before.
Well, yeah, that's the downside, right? But hopefully it's all about us being able to share more stories, right? And really be able to connect with people, right? In fact, you know, I never thought of myself as being a podcaster, right? And certainly I grew up in the entertainment industry. And even though, you know, I had done things on camera before, you know, I always loved the notion of doing things live, right? These live conversations, being in front of a live audience. And, you know, even during COVID, it was like, hey, how can we reach people, right? Like I can't just constantly be on Zoom, and what's a way that we can have more conversations? And that's where you know, my husband Joe, who produces the Lead with Your Brand podcast, was like, well, hey, maybe now is the time to do a podcast. And you know, part of my brand is being a super connector and a storyteller, and being a little bit of a showman and Hollywood, and it just dawned on us like, well, why aren't we we doing this, right? It's like, I've got this huge Rolodex of really cool people that we can talk to, that can share their own career breakthrough stories and how they've led with their brand throughout their careers. And that was really the start of the podcast. And now we're coming up on, closing out the third season and getting ready for a fourth season. And because it's LGBTQ plus Pride Month, right, we are able to showcase all sorts of LGBTQ plus voices at leadwithyourbrand.com/pride, where, you can see our entire collection of everyone LGBTQ plus who's been on the show, which is, such a great resource, because oftentimes, we don't know that someone's a member of our community when they just show up in the thumbnail on a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams box. So it's great to kind of even talk to people that I've known for years, but then you always like learn these nuggets that you're like, how did I know you for 20 years and not know about that? And in fact, we just recorded with Wilson Cruz, right, who's the star of Star Trek Discovery on Paramount Plus. And I've known him since he was like first filming the first season of My So-Called Life way back in the early 90s. And just in our conversation on the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, how have we known each other for years and I didn't know some of these things about you or these experiences you've had.
Yeah, the world is, and those are the positive sides of how the world has changed.
Yeah.
And, what's interesting is going back to when you said you were mentioning you tag us when you travel around different parts of the world, and I enjoy those. But the personal side of your life that not maybe everyone knows, but you love amusement parks.
Well, I am a theme park junkie. I will tell you, growing up as a Hollywood kid, right, it was always about the trek going down to Disney theme parks, right, or Disneyland here in California, and taking everyone to Universal Studios when we had guests from out of town. And I'll tell you, like my very first college jobs were really working in theme parks. In fact, I got my foot in the door working at Universal, which became NBCUniversal, by becoming a show announcer out at the Miami Vice Action Spectacular and the Adventures of Conan, if anyone remembers that, or working out at the Knight Rider kit car, right? And I think in one of the very first actual Halloween Horror Nights, I was the teen tram terror victim, where all night long I had like a university sweatshirt that had gashes and rips out of it, and I would fall off a crashed tram and be chased by a man with a live chainsaw where they had just taken the chain links off of. So I'm like a true example of that. You can get your foot in the door anywhere in the media business.
Trying to picture you in your young 20s working there at Universal.
If I actually have they gave me my very first ID picture when I left, which is very funny, because again, back then it was like where you literally took a physical photo and they like had to press it through a thing and laminate it. So they actually made like a passport. There were actually, in my hard employee file, there were extra photos. It's like unrecognizable because I was like so tan, so skinny, and so blonde. But that was the early 90s for you.
Yes, exactly. And lastly, every year I always notice that I think every year you do the AIDS life cycle ride, correct?
Well, I don't do the AIDS life cycle ride, but I am on the board of directors of the Los Angeles LGBT Center. So I'm a huge supporter. I have to tell you, Matt, I didn't get a driver's license till I was 19, and I rode my bicycle everywhere. And once I turned 19 and got a driver's license, I told myself I would never get on a bicycle again. And I'm standing by that. But to all of our friends and family members that are riding in the AIDS life cycle, right, which is the huge ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and it benefits the Los Angeles LGBT Center and the San Francisco AIDS Foundation. Thank you for all that you do, and everyone can go to alc.org and donate and support the cause to really help eradicate HIV in our communities.
Yeah, no, my husband's in the ride for the first time this year.
What?
So that's why I brought it up. I thought
so you like never see him because he's constantly on a training ride like every weekend.
Training every weekend here in New York with a group, and the whole group is going out. They're all flying out June 2nd. And but that's where I'll be out there at the end when it ends on June 11th.
Oh, yay. Well, then I'll see you at Fairfax High School when
Yep.
everyone comes rolling in with the other, 200,000 people that are out there. But I can't miss you, Matt, because you're like the gigantic teddy bear that I can see from like across the crowd.
Well, I will definitely be there. So I'll be there then. And yeah, that's we're going to be welcoming him. We'll have a whole group there. So it should be fun.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So this has been wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks and just kind of spending some time with you during our Happy Pride Month here, both LA and New York.
Absolutely, Matt. It was so great catching up with you. And thank you for everything that you're doing over at Pink Media. And of course, I love all of your social handles because it lets me know what is cool and happening everywhere that I go.
Oh, thank you. Great seeing you.
Bye, Matt. Have a good one.